Good day to everyone. We will be discussing about the globalization of religion. Now, from the word globalization, what does it mean? Globalization simply means the speed up of movements and exchanges of human beings, goods and services, capital, technologies, or cultural practices all over the world. Now, let us proceed to the word religion. Now, what is religion? Religion, on the other hand, is a social cultural system of designated behaviors and practices, morals, worldviews, texts, sanctified places, prophecies, ethics, or organizations that relates humanity to supernatural, transcendental, and spiritual elements. Religion simply means belief in a god or gods and activities that are connected with this belief, such as praying or worshiping in a building such as church or temple. Now, what is the role of religion? The problems of globalization are of such magnitude that any one nation or institution cannot deal with them effectively. They are the concerns of all nations, all religions, and all institutions of humankind. Science, economics, politics, and religions should stand together in eliminating these threats and building a new humanity. We should note that all religions were global and transnational. They could recognize people beyond national boundaries. But now, they have taken back the seats and let the trading companies take the lead. This may be because religions were too slow to respond to human development. This is to change. Religions should take the lead in fostering universal fraternity. Is globalization really a threat to religion? The answer is yes. Why? The results indicate that globalization is a contributing factor to the increase of restrictions on religious freedom. This partly is being explained by the perceived communities feel when they are exposed to members of other religions. Restrictions on religious freedom are on the rise. Here is the comparison between religious people and non-religious people or globalist. Religious person or religious people is concerned with one sacred, whereas the globalist places value on material wealth. Religious person believes that the possibility of communication between humans and the transcendent. They also follows divine commandments, while the globalist abides by human-made laws. Another comparison between the two is that religious person is less concerned with wealth and is ascetic, while globalist is less worried whether they will end up in heaven or hell. Religious person aspires to become saint and detests politics, while on the other hand, globalist trains to be a shrewd business person and values politics. Religious person also believe that living among non-believers will distract them from their mission or attempt to abandon their faith and become sinners like everyone else.
Hello, so in this video I will be talking about the globalization of religion. So first let's define globalization. So generally globalization is first thought of in economic and political terms as a movement of capitalism spreading across the globe. Since globalization can be defined as a process of an ever more interdependent world where political, economic, social, and cultural relationships are not restricted to territorial boundaries or to state actors, globalization has much to do with its impact on cultures. So, why is culture an important part of religion? Culture and religion are inextricably interwoven. Indeed, on the surface, one could argue that they are the same. So, what is the difference between culture and religion? In the purest sense of definitions, religion is a subset of culture. Culture itself embodies the language, traditions, kinship systems, shared values, and beliefs that define a society. So, as goods and finance crisscross across the globe, globalization shifts the cultural makeup of the globe and creates a homogenized global culture. Although not a new phenomenon, the process of globalization has truly made the world a smaller place in which political, social, and economic events elsewhere affect individuals anywhere. So, as a result, individuals search for constant time and space bounded identities in a world ever changing by the day. So, one such identity is religion. So, what is religion? So, generally, religion is a system of beliefs and practices. More specifically, the word comes from the Latin religare, which means to bind together again that which was once bound but has since been torn apart or broken. So indeed, with the globalization of economics and politics, individuals feel insecure as the life they once led is being contested and changed at the same time. So in order for a person to maintain a sense of psychological well-being and avoid existential anxiety, individuals turn to scripture, stories, and teachings that provide a vision about how they can be bound to a meaningful world. So, nonetheless, the relationships between globalization and religion is one with the new possibilities and furthering challenges. On the one hand, religion takes advantage of communication and transportation technology. It is at the same time the source of globalization's greatest resistance by acting as a heaven for those standing in opposition to its power. On the other hand, because globalization allows for daily contact, religion enters a circle of conflict in which religions become more self-conscious of themselves as being world religions. So, what is the religious perspective on globalization? A great many religious commentators understand globalization as at once a largely economic, imperialistic, and homogenizing process. They share the economic, mass, cultural, political perspective, evaluating globalization as anywhere from a threatening challenge to the manifestation of evil in our world. So, in many respects, globalization in this segment of the literature is a successor term for what used to be censured as the capitalist system or cognate terms. Accordingly, globalization results in violence and the unjust oppression of the majority of people around the world. It threatens local and indigenous cultures, imposing a particularly heavy burden on women. It is the shift of cause of global and local environmental degradation, again to the principal detriment of the mass of marginalized humanity. Such theologically inspired positions are not restricted to the representatives of a particular religious tradition. So, for example, Christians, Buddhists, Muslims, Jews, and those speaking from indigenous traditions all arrive at similar critical assessments of globalization. And far from being a characteristically religious perspective, such arguments are quite common in the overall literature. Whether recognizably religious or not, what they imply among other consequences is that religion and religious sensibilities are at root outside Of contrary to globalization, that globalization and religion are fundamentally incommensurate.
Hello, sir. Good day. I'm Arbola April May A. The next topic is about realities. In actuality, the relationship between religion and globalism is much more complicated. When we say religion, religion is a social cultural system of designated behaviors and practices, morals, worldviews, texts, sanctified places, prophecies, ethics, or organizations that relates humanity to supernatural, transcendental, and spiritual elements, while globalism is the operation or planning of economic and foreign policy on a global basis. According to Peter Berger, also known as Peter Ludwig Berger, an Austrian-born American sociologist and Protestant theologian, Berger became known for his work in the sociology of knowledge, the sociology of religion, study of modernization, and theoretical contributions to sociological theory. He is known for his notable work, The Social Construction of Reality, a treatise in the sociology of knowledge. It is a book in 1966 about the sociology of knowledge by the sociologists Peter L. Berger and Thomas Lockman. Argues that far from being secularized, the contemporary world is furiously religious. In most of the world, there are veritable explosions of religious fervor occurring in one form or another in all major religious traditions such as Christianity. Christianity is the most widely practiced religion in the world, with more than 2 billion followers. The Christian faith centers on beliefs regarding the birth, life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. While it started with a small group of adherents, many historians regard the spread and adoption of Christianity throughout the world as one of the most successful spiritual missions in human history. Judaism. Judaism is the world's oldest monotheistic religion, dating back nearly 4,000 years. Followers of Judaism believe in one God who revealed himself through ancient prophets. The history of Judaism is essential to understanding the Jewish faith, which has a rich heritage of law, culture, and tradition. Third is the Islam. Islam is the second largest religion in the world after Christianity, with about 1.8 billion Muslims worldwide. Although its roots go back further, scholars typically date the creation of Islam to the 7th century, making it the youngest of the major world religions. Islam started in Mecca, in modern-day Saudi Arabia, during the time of the Prophet Muhammad's life. Today, the faith is spreading rapidly throughout the world. Fourth, Hinduism. Hinduism is the world's oldest religion according to many scholars, with roots and customs dating back more than 4,000 years. Today, with about 900 million followers, Hinduism is the third largest religion behind Christianity and Islam. Roughly 95% of the world's Hindus live in India. Because the religion has no specific founder, it's difficult to trace its origins and history. Hinduism is unique in that it's not a single religion, but a compilation of many traditions and philosophies. Fourth, Fifth, Buddhism. Buddhism is a faith that was founded by Siddhartha Gautama, known as the Buddha, more than 2,500 years ago in India, with about 470 million followers. Scholars consider Buddhism one of the major world religions. Its practice has historically been most prominent in East and Southeast Asia, but its influence is growing in the West. Many Buddhist ideas and philosophies overlap with those of other faiths. Sixth, Confucianism. Confucianism, the way of life, propagated by Confucius in the 6th to 5th century BCE and followed by the Chinese people for the more than 2 millennia. Although transformed over time, it is still the substance of learning, the source of values, and the social code of the Chinese. Its influence has also extended to other countries, particularly Korea, Japan, and Vietnam. Religions are the foundations of modern republics. The Malaysian government places religion at the center of the political system. Its constitution explicitly states that Islam is the religion of the federation, and the rulers of each state was also the lead of the religion of Islam. According to Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, the former supreme leader of Iran and was an Iranian religious and political leader who in 1979 made Iran the world's first Islamic republic, he became a religious scholar and in the early 1920s rose to become an Ayatollah, a term for a leading Shia scholar, bragged about the superiority of Islamic rule over its secular counterparts, and pointed out that there is no fundamental distinction among constitutional, despotic, dictatorial, democratic, and communistic regimes. To Khomeini, all secular ideologies Moreover, religious movements do not hesitate to appropriate secular themes and practices. The moderate Muslim Association, Nadlatul Ulama, who was founded on 31st of January 1926 as a counter-movement to the increasingly successful reformist Muhammadiyya organization. NU is a mass-based socio-religious Islamic organization under the leadership of ulema, and it is the largest in Indonesia with around 35 million members. NU activities include the religious, social, educational, economic, and political. Nadlatul Ulama in Indonesia has Islamic schools, also known as pesantren, where students are taught not only about Islam but also about modern science, the social sciences, modern banking, civic education, rights of women, pluralism, and democracy. In other cases, religion was the result of a shift in state policy. The Church of England, for example, was shaped by the rationality of modern democratic and bureaucratic culture. King Henry VIII was King of England from 1509 until his death in 1547. King Henry is best known for his 6 marriages and in particular his efforts to have his first marriage annulled. Ruled England for 36 years, presiding over sweeping changes that brought his nation into the Protestant Reformation. King Henry broke away from Roman Catholicism and established his own church to bolster his own power. In the United States, religion and law were fused together to help build this modern secular society. It was observed in the early 18th by French historian and diplomat Alexis de Tocqueville, who wrote, De Tocqueville was a French aristocrat, diplomat, political scientist, political philosopher, and historian. De Tocqueville was the French author of Democracy in America in year 1835, perhaps the best and certainly the most widely quoted book ever written about the United States. He was unusual for his time in many ways. One way in which he stood out in 19th century France was his attitude towards religion. Who wrote, "Not only do the Americans practice their religion out of self-interest, but they often even place in this world the interest which they have in practicing it." Dr. Jose Casanova is a sociologist and professor at Georgetown University and senior fellow. Jose Casanova confirms this statement by noting that historically religion has always been at the very center of all great political conflicts and movements of social reform. From independence to abolition, from nativism to women's suffrage, from prohibition to the civil rights movement, religion has always been at the center of these conflicts, but also on both sides of the political barricades.
The globalization of religion. Conclusion. For a phenomenon that is about everything, it is odd that globalization is seen to have very little to do with religion. As Peter Bayer and Laurie Bayman observed, religion, it seems, is somehow outside, looking at globalization as problem or potential. One reason for this perspective is the association of globalization with modernization, which is a concept of progress that is based on science, technology, reason, and the law. With reason, one will have to look elsewhere than to moral discourse for fruitful thinking about economic globalization and religion. Religion, being a belief system that cannot be empirically proven, is therefore anathema to modernization. The thesis that modernization will erode religious practice is often called the secularization theory. Historians, political scientists, and the philosophers have now debunked much of secularization theory. Samuel Huntington, one of the strongest defenders of globalization, admits in his book, The Clash of Civilizations, that civilization can be held together by religious worldviews. This belief is hardly new. As far back as the 15th century, Jesuits and Dominicans used religion as an ideological armature to legitimize the Spanish Empire. Finally, one of the greatest sociologists of all time, Max Weber, also observed the correlation between religion and capitalism as an economic system. Calvinism, a branch of Protestantism, believed that God had already decided who would and would not be saved. Calvinists, therefore, made it their mission to search for clues as to their fate, and in their pursuit, they redefined the meaning of prophet and its acquisition. In short, despite their inflexible features, the warnings of perdition, hell is a real place prepared by Allah for those who do not believe in Him, rebel against His laws, and reject His messengers, the promises of salvation. But our citizenship is in heaven, under obligatory pilgrimages, the visits to Bethlehem or Mecca. Their resilience has been extraordinary that they have outlasted secular ideologies. Globalists, therefore, have no choice but to accept this reality that religion is here to stay. In a time in which globalization has yet to fully complete its process, religions must use the communication easily available through advanced technology to focus more on the humane and pluralistic forms of their teachings, values such as human dignity and human freedom, as means to manage religious diversity and avoid violence. In other words, religious should be open to other traditions and what they can teach. In fact, though having fixed text, the major world religions do not have fixed beliefs, only fixed in interpretations of those beliefs, meaning their beliefs can be rediscovered, reinvented, and reconceptualized. Hence, the relation between religion and globalization has brought new possibilities but also furthering challenges.
So that would be all. Thank you.